The domain of a function is the set of all values that you're allowed to put into it, and the range of a function is the set of all values that you get out of it. So when you're looking at the graph of a function, it's very easy to determine the domain and range. Since this function is a function of x, if we look at the graph, the x values that are represented by the graph are going to represent the domain. So the leftmost point here would represent the leftmost point in the domain, or the smallest x value possible, and then it goes on forever and ever, so the domain would go from -3 up to positive infinity. Now the range is the values that you get out of it, so if you're looking at this graph, we start at 0, that would be the lowest point that we get, and it looks like it plateaus, but it does actually continue to increase infinitely, so it would be from 0 and then it keeps going up and up and up to positive infinity. So if we wanted to find the domain and range of these functions here, all we need to do is look at the furthest point left and furthest point right to determine the domain. So we're going to assume that this keeps going on forever and ever and ever, so the domain would be from -infinity up to positive infinity. Now the range is how high and how low it goes, so here we can see that it starts at 0 and it does touch the 0 point, so we're going to use a bracket here, and then it goes up to the point 2, and it does touch the point 2, at least it looks like it does. Now linear equations like this are easy. The domain and range are always -infinity to positive infinity. Sorry, I'm writing this kind of sideways and it's a little hard to write. Okay. So if I want to find the domain and range of this function, once again, we'll assume that it goes on forever and ever and ever. If there's no dotted line symbolizing an asymptote symbolizing any kind of asymptote, you're just going to assume that it keeps going forever and ever and ever. It might be slow, but it is going to do it. So that means it goes all the way to the left and all the way to the right, so the domain would be -infinity to positive infinity. And then the range, so the lowest point, it goes forever and ever down here, so the lowest point is -infinity, but then the highest point, this looks like it's about at 1/2, so 1/2, and then I'm going to use a bracket because it does actually reach there. Okay, with this one, the domain, it goes both directions forever, so the domain is -infinity to positive infinity. And the range, let's see, it goes down to 1, so it starts at 1, so I'm going to use a bracket of -1, excuse me, and then it goes up to positive infinity. Alright. Now this one, so it has an open circle here at -1, so that means it is not included in the domain. So we would do -1, and then it goes up to 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 4, and does include it, so it's -1 to 4, including 4, excluding -1. And now we'll do the range. So the lowest point is at 1. It does include it, it's a closed circle here. Oops. And then the highest point is up here at 3, and it does not include it. Okay. Last one, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to assume that it goes forever and ever. So the domain is once again -infinity to positive infinity. And the range, it goes down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So oops, sorry, that should be a bracket. -5 up to positive infinity.